defying reality. They weren't just fighting superior weapons, they were fighting superior thinking. Every human innovation challenged fundamental assumptions about space warfare, the technological advantage that had sustained the Empire for centuries. Suddenly seemed meaningless against human creativity. General Namsu stood before the Imperial High Council, his 1,000-year-old military tradition crumbling around him. The holographic battle reports floated in the air, each one showing the same impossible reality. "The humans have won," he said simply. Admiral Kyung-soo sat at the council table, his pride shattered. 3 weeks of battle had taught him what centuries of conquest had not. Doctrine could become prison. How? Asked Elder Dongwook. We outnumber them. Our technology is superior. Our experience spans millennia. That's exactly the problem, replied Captain Jae-hyun, one of the few Imperial commanders who had adapted. Our experience became our weakness. The council chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. General Namsu activated the tactical display. Watch this engagement from yesterday. The hologram showed an Imperial battle formation, perfect lines, precise spacing, textbook execution. Then human ships appeared, moving like flowing water rather than rigid geometry. They struck from impossible angles, retreated before anyone could respond, regrouped in ways that defied military logic. They don't follow our rules, Jae-hyun continued. Individual captains make independent decisions that somehow always support their group's goal. It's organized chaos. Admiral Yeon-hee, who had observed human tactics firsthand, added her report. Their command structure is a paradox. No rigid hierarchy, yet perfect coordination. Each ship thinks like a single warrior in a pack. Captain Min Jun was brought in to testify. He had spent days analyzing captured human communications. They use general objectives instead of specific orders, he explained. A human commander might say, disrupt Imperial formation in Sector 7. How it gets done is up to individual captains. Barbaric, muttered Elder Sunmi. No discipline, no proper chain of command. That's what we thought, replied Admiral Dongwook. Until it worked. The council reviewed battle footage. Imperial ships moving in perfect formation, predictable and therefore vulnerable. Human ships flowing like starlings in flight, each individual yet somehow one organism. Captain Bora, a tactical analyst, presented the most disturbing findings. They innovate during battle. We plan for centuries, then execute. They plan, execute, and adapt simultaneously. What about our superior technology? Asked Elder Gite. Irrelevant, answered Admiral Ji-hoon. They use our own technology better than we do. They see possibilities where we see only specifications. General Namsu made the announcement that would change Imperial history forever. We must adapt or fall. The room erupted in protests. Imperial military doctrine was sacred, unchanged for 1,000 years. To modify it meant admitting error, showing weakness. Silence, Namsu commanded. Young Captain Ju-wan has submitted a proposal. We will test it. Captain Ju-wan, barely 30 years old, stood nervously. We must give local commanders more autonomy. Let them make tactical decisions without waiting for central approval. Outrageous, shouted Elder Hyri. Chaos, anarchy. No, said Captain Wu Jin, who had volunteered to test the new tactics. Freedom. I've tried these methods in simulation. They work. The War Council voted. Tradition versus necessity. The Empire versus evolution. 3 days later, Captain Wu Jin led the first test squadron using modified human-inspired tactics. His ships moved with new fluidity, responded to threats instantly, coordinated through general objectives rather than specific orders. The results shocked everyone. Admiral Seok Jin monitored the engagement from the command center. They're holding their own. Our ships are actually matching human tactical efficiency. But the change came at a cost. Imperial commanders who had served for decades found themselves unable to adapt. Some resigned in protest. Others clung desperately to old methods. Captain So-yeon, now commanding a mixed human Imperial training squadron, watched Imperial officers struggle with concepts human children understood instinctively. Freedom equals responsibility, she explained to Imperial cadets. When every captain can choose, every captain must choose wisely. The paradigm shift rippled through Imperial society. Military academies rewrote textbooks. Tactical simulations incorporated chaos theory. The rigid hierarchies that had defined Imperial culture for centuries began to crack. General Nam Su addressed the Empire in a historic broadcast. We have learned from humanity, not submission but evolution, not defeat but transformation. Across the galaxy, former enemies began joint training exercises. Imperial technology met human creativity. Rigid discipline learned from adaptive flexibility. The war ended not with surrender but with mutual recognition. Both species had changed forever. Admiral Kyung-Soo commanded the first mixed fleet, Imperial ships and human vessels working side by side. His tactical displays now showed both rigid formations and flowing patterns, each supporting the other. They were never primitive, he admitted to his bridge crew. They were just different, and we were too blind to see it. The Galactic Empire still existed, but it was no longer the same empire. Human influence had shattered the chains of tradition, replacing them with something more dangerous and more powerful: the freedom to think differently. The last battle report summarized it simply. Humanity has not defeated the Empire. They have infected it with innovation. And perhaps that was always going to be humanity's greatest victory. Formation. Human creativity had turned Imperial superiority in hardware into human superiority in software. As alarms continued sounding across Imperial ships, one thought echoed in every commander's mind. How does an empire fight an enemy that controls its own technology better than it does? Admiral Ji-hoon watched from his command deck as the first human railgun round hit the Imperial battleship Iron Thunder. What happened next shocked him to his core. The magnetic slug, accelerated to nearly light speed, passed straight through the battleship's energy shields as if they didn't exist. Metal screamed as the round punched a hole clean through the ship's hull engines and out the other side. Impossible, muttered Captain Dongwook, the Imperial tactical officer. Energy shields deflect everything, not kinetic rounds at relativistic speeds, explained his human counterpart Captain Sunmi from the captured Imperial database they had accessed. Your shields stop energy weapons. Our railguns use pure physics. Aboard the human destroyer, Newton's hammer, Chief Engineer Hosiok calibrated the next shot. Railgun 2, target the disabled cruiser. Show them what acceleration really means. The magnetic coils powered up with a deep hum. Capacitors discharged in sequence, each adding velocity to the metal slug. By the time it left the barrel, the round moved at speeds that made Imperial energy weapons look like thrown rocks. 3 Imperial ships watched their shields flicker uselessly as railgun rounds punched through armor, systems, and anything else in their path. Sir, we're detecting incoming torpedoes, reported Lieutenant Yan He from her sensor station. But they're not behaving like standard projectiles. On his small frigate Plasma Wolf, Captain Jun Woo smiled as his magnetic containment torpedoes reached effective range. Unlike Imperial energy weapons that fired continuous beams, these torpedoes carried superheated plasma in magnetic bottles. Release payload, he ordered. The torpedoes detonated, releasing their contained star matter in concentrated bursts. The plasma chewed through Imperial armor that had withstood conventional laser fire for hours. Each torpedo hit like a small nuclear explosion. Their power signatures don't match their damage output, Captain Jae-hyun reported from the damaged cruiser Storm King. These weapons shouldn't be this effective. What the Imperial fleet didn't understand was human engineering, creativity. The Empire had developed their weapons over centuries, perfecting established technologies. Humans threw out the rulebook entirely. Captain Bo-Ra's carrier drone mother revealed the next surprise. Her bay doors opened, releasing a swarm of small, unmanned fighters. But these weren't standard drones. Kamikaze units away, announced her drone controller Lieutenant Sung-ho. Quantum entanglement controllers active. Each drone carried a pilot's consciousness transmitted through quantum links. The pilots sat safely aboard the carrier, controlling their drones without delay or danger to themselves. When a drone died, the pilot simply connected to another. "They're piloting remotely," realized Captain Min-jun as he watched the drones perform impossible maneuvers. No biological limits, no fear of death. The drones dove at Imperial fighters with suicidal determination. Each carried enough antimatter to cripple a destroyer. Imperial pilots trained in self-preservation couldn't match the relentless attacks. Then the ghost ships appeared. Captain Seok Jin's stealth destroyer Invisible Death materialized behind Imperial lines. His ship's experimental cloaking technology bent space itself, making it invisible to all sensors. "Ghost 3 and 7 are in position," his communications officer whispered. "Targets locked." 3 human ships, previously invisible, opened fire simultaneously on an Imperial command vessel. Plasma torpedoes and railgun rounds hit home before the Imperial ship even knew it was under attack. "Contact vanished," screamed the Imperial sensor operator. Where did they go? The ghost ships had already reactivated their cloaking and moved to new positions. Imperial counterfires hit empty space. Admiral Kyung-soo reviewed battle reports that seemed written by madmen. Weapons that ignore shields. Plasma that burns through anything. Pilots who can't die. Ships that vanish and reappear. His chief scientist, Commander Gite, tried to explain. "Sir, they're not following established physics. It's like they started from scratch with different assumptions." "Explain the shields," Kyung-soo demanded. "Our shields project energy fields," Gite said slowly. "We've never encountered purely kinetic weapons at these velocities. The energy required to accelerate mass to such speeds, we thought it was impractical. And the plasma weapons? They're using magnetic containment in ways we never imagined. Instead of projecting energy, they're delivering it in concentrated packages. It's crude but devastatingly effective." The final shock came when Captain Wu Jin's hybrid ship, Tech Thief, demonstrated Imperial technology modified by human engineering. His team had captured an Imperial gravitic torpedo and reverse-engineered it. "Fire-modified torpedo," Wu Jin ordered. The weapon spiraled in flight patterns that defied Imperial gravitics. Instead of following predictable paths, it wove through space like a living thing. When it hit, the gravitic distortion tore an Imperial frigate apart from the inside. "They're using our own weapons better than we do," Captain Dong-hyun reported with disbelief. "How is that possible?" The answer was human adaptability. Where the Empire refined existing technology, humans mixed and matched everything. They saw possibilities where Imperial engineers saw limitations. As the battle continued, Imperial forces faced a Terry. Signatures. The Imperial ship, already damaged from a previous attack, monitored space around nearby stations. "Now," Wu Jin ordered softly. Magnetic rounds hammered the battleship's weapon systems. The Imperial captain, convinced the attack came from nearby human stations, ordered return fire in the wrong direction. By the time they realized their mistake, Wu Jin's pack had vanished again. Days turned into a week. The Imperial fleet, designed for direct confrontation, found itself overwhelmed by guerrilla warfare. Ships that had dominated systems for centuries now moved in tight defensive formations, afraid of the next ambush. "We need to change tactics," Captain Dong-hyun suggested to Admiral Kyung-soo. "Their doctrine defeats ours completely." The admiral's face darkened. Imperial doctrine had remained unchanged for 1,000 years. To admit it failed against primitives was unthinkable. "Order all ships to maintain standard formations," he commanded. "We will outlast these bandits." But, in the asteroids, human commanders prepared for the next phase. The wolf packs had proven their effectiveness. Now it was time to escalate their unconventional warfare into something the Empire had never imagined. Information warfare that would strike at the very heart of Imperial communications. The hunt continued, but the roles had quietly reversed. The proud Empire now flinched at shadows, while human wolf packs circled their prey with patient, deadly efficiency. Captain So-yeon sat in the dim blue light of the Digital Ghosts Cyber Warfare Center. Around her, dozens of human specialists worked at glowing terminals, their fingers dancing across holographic keyboards. "Target acquired," announced Specialist Gi Tai. "Imperial battleship Iron Fist is downloading tactical data now." So-Yan smiled. "Begin insertion." Miles away aboard the Iron Fist, Commander Jae-hyun reviewed his tactical display with growing confusion. 3 different sets of coordinates appeared for the same enemy contact. His sensor officer, Lieutenant Yan-hee, frowned at her screen. "Sir, we're getting contradictory targeting data. Contacts appear in 3 different locations." "Run diagnostics," Jae-hyun ordered. "Equipment malfunction." But the diagnostics showed green. Everything worked perfectly. The problem wasn't the hardware. It was the information being fed into it. Back on the digital ghost, Gi-tae watched his virus spread through Imperial networks. Ghost signals active across 12 Imperial ships. They're getting targeting data for non-existent threats. In a neighboring asteroid field, Captain Min-jun's destroyer network Phantom executed the next phase. His communications officer, Sub-Lieutenant Sung-ho, initiated the command disruption protocol. "Inject the conflict commands," Min-jun ordered, calmly. Suddenly, Admiral Dong-wook aboard the command cruiser Supreme Authority received an urgent message appearing to come from Admiral Kyung-soo himself. "Abort current formation. Execute attack pattern Delta 9 immediately." 3 seconds later, another message arrived from what seemed to be the same source. "Maintain current formation. Previous order was enemy deception." Dong-wook stared at his console. Both messages had the proper Imperial encryption codes. Both carried the Admiral's personal command signature. "Communications officer," he bellowed, "verify the source of these orders." "Sir, both messages authenticate as genuine. Same source, same encryption, same command signature." Across the Imperial fleet, similar confusion spread. Ships received orders to fire on specific coordinates, where friendly vessels happened to be located. Tactical computers suggested battle plans that would send Imperial ships into asteroid fields or collision courses with each other. Lieutenant Bo-ra, working from a small human stealth ship, watched the chaos unfold on her screens. Her quantum computer had cracked Imperial command encryption protocols days ago. Now she simply needed to think like an Imperial commander to create believable false orders. "Their system is too trusting," she told her team. "Once you have the right codes, they accept any command without question." The Imperial fleet began fragmenting. Ships hesitated before following orders. Captains cross-checked every command with neighboring vessels. Communication channels jammed as everyone tried to verify everything. Admiral Kyung-soo finally realized something was wrong when he received a report that he had apparently ordered the execution of 3 of his own ship captains, an order he never gave. "This is enemy action," he declared to his bridge crew. "Some kind of communication attack." But understanding the problem didn't solve it. Human cyber warfare specialists had infiltrated Imperial networks at the deepest level. Every attempted countermeasure was anticipated and countered. Captain Wu Jin's specialized cyber assault vessel Logic Bomb took the attack to a new level. His team of digital warfare experts had spent weeks studying Imperial tactical AI systems. "Their AIs are predictable," Wu Jin explained to his deputy, Commander Hyeri. "They follow strict logical patterns. We can manipulate those patterns." The human team inserted modified combat routines into Imperial tactical computers. These changes seemed minor, slight delays in target acquisition, microscopic errors in calculation, but they accumulated quickly. During a firefight with human bombers, the Imperial destroyer Vengeance Wraith found its weapons systems firing half a second too late. Every shot missed by inches. The tactical computer's new programming created tiny mistakes that added up to complete ineffectiveness. "What's wrong with our guns?" Captain Sunmi shouted as human ships danced around her weapon fire. 0 hits in 12 minutes of combat. Her chief engineer, Lieutenant Ji-hoon, ran diagnostics frantically. "Everything checks out, sir. The computer says we're firing perfectly." But they weren't. Human programming had turned Imperial precision into Imperial frustration. The cyber warfare escalation reached its peak when the human AI specialists introduced their most innovative creation, adaptive infiltration programs. Unlike Imperial AIs that followed rigid logic trees, human AIs could learn, improvise, and create new solutions in real time. Their firewalls adapt too slowly, observed Commander Soyan as she watched her programs flow through Imperial networks like water. By the time they identify and counter one intrusion, 5 more have already entered different subsystems. Admiral Kyung-soo convened an emergency command meeting via heavily encrypted personal channels, the only communications he still trusted. "We're fighting blind," Captain Dong-hyun reported grimly. "Our computers tell us one thing, our sensors another, our communications a third thing. We can't trust our own systems anymore." The proud Imperial fleet, masters of technology for centuries, found themselves defeated by HFY